Sakina Kamwendo on SAFM.
Now, as South Africa wraps up Women's Month, some female traditional leaders in the Vhembe district in Limpopo have expressed confidence that positive strides have been made in recognizing the role of women in customary structures 30 years into democracy. Ba Musanda wo Bwawana of Chiaulu village and Ba Musanda wo Ligeke of Tutuni village have been on their respective thrones for several decades. Now, the pair have hailed advancements by some customary institutions that have seen women take up leadership positions. SABC News reporter Michael Makungo has more.
Approaching Mamusanda Bontsezeni Bawana's palace, one is welcomed by traditional sounds from instruments made of wood and oxhide known as Murumba and Ngoma in Chivenda. Her palace is nestled at the bottom of Maangalawe mountains between Chamasubelele and the Kavue rivers at Chaolo, a picturesque square village 50 kilometers from Thohoyandou. Since 1800, only one man has ascended the throne of the Bwawana Traditional Authority. He died shortly afterwards, as his installation was against the norms of the Traditional Authority. This according to Mamusanda Bwawana, who has been ruling since 1972. She succeeded Aunt Nyamliwana, who was coronated in 1932. Nyamliwana ruled for over 40 years. Chief Bwawana believes the development of customary law, which has been done to align with the constitution, will not change their traditional practices.
This village does not need a man to be on the throne. My people tried without success. The elders showed long ago that a man cannot be on the throne. Only women must ascend it as per our practice. Bad things happened after a man was installed as chief. Men who were installed as chief in this village did not live even for a week because they died.
Vamusanda Bwawana says traditional leaders must provide ethical leadership that align with their traditional practices. She, however, refused to divulge details around how they ensure that there is a successor, saying it is a secret kept by the royal family.
I must appreciate political leadership for the good working relationship with traditional leaders, particularly women, because when the democratic government took over from apartheid, they did not remove women who sat on the throne. Her successor for the throne is ready and is known, but that is a secret.
Some residents of Chaolo say they are fortunate to have a female chief because she understands their social needs.
Do respect her fully and wholeheartedly. We respect her, we bow before her.
We are so impressed because she's the one who can only guide us. She's kind and loyal and she's very humble. That's why we show her a very, 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 very highly respected because she don't undermine anyone.
Meanwhile, about 50 kilometers away, another female traditional leader, Vamusanda Wondwamato Popeligege, presides over her village. She inherited her grandfather's throne in 2007. Vamusanda Ligege says, historically, both men and women have ascended that throne.
As Masingo clan, it is not taboo to have a woman leader. Maybe if I can go back a little bit, we were having one at PPB. She was being called Wadenga. Then we also have Womupiri at Chilafende. We also have Womukumera at Muhuyu. When my grandfather died, my great aunt took over the throne. So it is not a new thing to me. That's why I said something is so secretively.
Okay. The two female leaders say there are secret ways to ensure that there is a succession plan after the reign. Michael Makungo, SABC in Chaulu.
Well, that's how we come to the end of today's show. And thank you so much for being with us this afternoon. Thanks to the production team as well. It's 1 o'clock. Here's Mudupi Makhalimele with your latest news.
Thank you very much, SK. The top stories is how our politics affect Metro's financial performances and disaster officials on standby in Cape Town. A very good afternoon. Auditor General Tsakani Maluleke says political instability has adversely impacted metros after the city of Cape Town became the only metro to receive a clean audit. She briefed Parliament's Portfolio Committee on Cooperative Governance on the 2022-23 local government audit outcomes. Maluleke says metros are struggling to compile credible service delivery reports.
75% of metros are unable to produce reliable service delivery reports. And as I said, these are the institutions that should be able to hire the type of skills, to acquire the type of information systems that help them collate the data that allows them to compile credible financial statements as well as credible performance reports. Metros need support to build capacity. As strange as that might sound, we find that the political instability that often confronts the administration of metros has the direct impact of weakening those institutions.
SABC CEO Nomsa Chabedi has again called on Parliament to create an enabling environment for the broadcaster to become sustainable on a long-term basis. Chabedi, together with the SABC board chairperson as well as the minister and deputy minister, addressed the Communications Committee on the broadcaster's 5-year turnaround plan and discussions around the SABC bill that is before the committee. It's envisaged that the bill will be the vehicle to change the way that the broadcaster can generate income. Disaster Risk Management in Cape Town says they are on high alert for any possible damage caused by gale force winds. Spokesperson Charlotte Powell says no incidents have been reported thus far. She says they are on standby to attend to any incidents caused by the inclement weather.
According to the South African Weather Service, the rainfall and wind gusts being experienced across the metropole will start easing off in the early hours of tomorrow. But we are mindful of the fact that some low-lying areas remain waterlogged as a result of the record rainfall experienced in July. City services are on standby to attend to any impacts that may arise, and our humanitarian partners too are on alert in the event that soft relief is required. We ask the public to please be on the lookout for any falling debris or other obstructions caused by strong winds.
The EFF in KZN says it'll implement the necessary strategies to reclaim its position and expand its influence in the province. This comes after the EFF Central Command team, led by party leader Julius Malema, visited its provincial branches at the weekend. The aim was to establish the reasons that led to the party's decline in support in the May 29 elections. Nonjabulo Mtungwamagamu reports.
In a statement, the EFF in KwaZulu-Natal has committed to working tirelessly to regain its support base in the province. This is a decline from close to 10% to about 2% in the May general elections. This has reduced the party's numbers in the provincial legislature from 8 to 2. Party leaders who visited the province at the weekend said while the party's poor performance might be seen as a defeat, turnaround strategies are being implemented nationally. For SABC News, I'm Nonjabulo Mtungwamagamu in Durban.
And the National Energy Development Institute has embarked on a partnership with the Durban University of Technology to advance green hydrogen research. The collaboration focuses on producing green hydrogen from borehole water, and it aims to propel South Africa towards a low-carbon economy. The Institute's Professor Samson Mampwedi says the project not only aligns with the SA's green hydrogen roadmap, but also promises to stimulate local economic growth and support the country's just energy transition.
On the economic growth, in general, we're looking at an investment of about 300 billion rands in the hydrogen economy between now and 2050. And that includes projects that will produce green hydrogen for the export market and the projects that will produce green hydrogen for local use. And all that will come with a lot of jobs. Once these green hydrogen production facilities are established, they will then have to be run for 20 to 30 years.
Recapping the top story this hour, Auditor General Tsakani Maluleka says political instability has adversely impacted metros after the city of Cape Town became the only metro to receive a clean audit. Time now for the full circle for SAFM News. Kimudupima Khalemeli.
Is there ever a bad time for a good conversation? SAFM, leading the conversations that move us.
Catch the Tastemaster Junior this Tuesday evening at 7 on SABC2 as the top 8 take on a new challenge. This week, they delve into the world of social media and learn what it takes for a recipe video to go viral online. Working together, they must create their own unique version of a famous social media bake. That's the Tastemaster Junior this Tuesday at 7, repeat Wednesdays at 1 and Sundays at 4 p.m. only on SABC2.
At Specsavers, we're committed to offering affordable and professional eye care. That's why we're offering 1,500 Rand worth of savings with our winter promotion. Get a free frame up to the value of 1,500 Rand or use the 1,500 Rand on one of our leading lens enhancements. To qualify, simply purchase a comprehensive eye examination and prescription frame and lenses. Book online or call your nearest store today. Specsavers, for affordable eye care and a whole lot more. T's and C's apply.
Last year finalists Kabuyelo Masandawana trust that high-level focus will return them to the final. Meanwhile, Stellies plan to dismantle all of that and book the vital ticket to the last 22-man standing. This is the second leg of the MTN 8 semi-final. Stellenbosch FC clashes with Mamelodi Sundowns FC on Sunday, 1st September at 2:30 p.m. live on SABC1 and SABC radio stations. Also available at your fingertips on SABC Plus and SABCSport.com. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
For the love of the game.
The Full Circle with Bridget Masinga, Monday to Friday, 1 to 3 p.m.
Where we were young and carefree. This It is Shakana coming through with Back to the Beach, and that is how we kick off on this fine Tuesday afternoon. I hope that you're having a great day thus far. It's beautiful, the weather outside today, and I'm hoping that it's holding up much the same countrywide. It's just gone 10 past 1 o'clock on the Full Circle with myself, Bridget Masinga, on SAFM. We've got a jam-packed schedule for you today. We're going to be catching up with Professor Kone Davis, who is an associate professor at the Department of Strategic Communications with the University of Johannesburg. And we're looking at a new research report on GBV in South Africa that was launched, just this morning in association with Tears Foundation and, of course, the University of Johannesburg. Also coming up, stages, pages, screens, and more. There's much excitement out in Bloemfontein as a new exhibition is set to open at the Olvenhays Art Museum, celebrating South Africa's journey to democracy. And we'll have that conversation with the curator of the exhibition as well as education officer at the Olvenhays Art Museum. After 2 o'clock, we're catching up with clinical psychologist Daniel Dan Hollander is going to be in studio. Here's a phrase that we often use: shame on you. It's used daily, but do we actually know how much of a sting and how perhaps even devastating those three words could be? Just the concept of shame. So we're going to have that conversation with our clinical psychologist on the other side of 2 o'clock. And I wonder, if you've ever felt sort of those words sting you and felt and felt that sense of deep, devastating shame for something that you've either said to somebody, something that you've done, an act that you've acted upon somebody. And how do you handle that? How do you get over that sense, that feeling that often leaves a pit in your stomach? So we're going to have that conversation on the other side of 2 o'clock, and I'll tell you what else is coming up after 2, because today is Tuesday. So we are going to have a health and wellness conversation on the other side of that second hour. 061-410-4107 is our WhatsApp line. 086-000-2032 is the number that you can call us on.
SA Women Struggles Journal. #Women's Month. Celebrating 30 years of democracy towards women's development, SAFM celebrates the power, resilience and brilliance of women. It's Women's Month, and we're honoring the incredible contributions of women in our communities, our workplaces and our homes. Join SAFM in recognizing the achievements, strengths and spirit of women everywhere. Let's uplift and empower each other today and every day. SAFM, leading the conversations that move us. You are listening to the Full Circle.
We're going to be in conversation now with Professor Kone Davis, who is an associate professor at the Department of Strategic Communication under the Faculty of Humanities at the University of Johannesburg. And they've launched a new research report on GBV in South Africa in collaboration with the Tears Foundation. And they're saying that this report is actually groundbreaking because it addresses some of the challenges with what has been insufficient and flawed reporting on GBV incidents. Good afternoon to you, Prof. How are you doing today?
Good afternoon, Bridget. I'm well, thank you, and you?
I'm fantastic. Thank you so much for making the time to be in conversation with us. And I guess maybe, but as just the gateway, let's start with what prompted, yourselves as UJ as well as Tears Foundation to actually undertake this research report.
Bridget, the biggest problem with GBV, and South Africa is one of the highest prevalence of GBV. Our biggest problem is its invisibility. If you can think that as little as 7% of cases of GBV are ever reported, and the statistics you see is desktop research. There's no real evidence. The police statistics don't distinguish exactly what kind of GBV happens. The other GBV call systems don't have a reporting system. They also include other emergencies such as snake bites or falling off a bicycle or whatever else. So there's no direct evidence of who is calling for GBV support. Mm-hmm. And because of the work Tears Foundation does and the Help at Your Fingertips line that Mara Glennie developed starting in 2013, there was a need to be able to see where are these calls coming from. And this is phase one of our research. It's evolved over many, many years with a lot of technological challenges, a lot of funding challenges which Tears have not received. It's been funded by Mara Glennie to a large extent to get to a system where people can get help. Mm-hmm. So in an emergency situation for GBV specifically, that they can call somewhere and they can be told where to go. Where is the nearest resources? And that was the one thing. The second thing that Tears has achieved is that it's free. You can access it without data or without airtime. It's available as a USSD line. The third major thing about it is that it's anonymous. Mm-hmm. So it's non-personal. It's not as if you have to respond to a caller or a receiver at the other end of the line. Because that is also our greatest challenge with GBV, is that the stigma that surrounds it prevents people from reaching out or seeking help or reporting it to any authority. So that's what prompted it to answer your question, is to provide a service, but also to be able to make this terrible crime of GBV visible, that we've got evidence of the calls being made.
Now, part of the write-up that I received, right, the point was made that the current reporting systems, as you've alluded, are flawed and insufficient to some degree. And let's understand as well as to how does then Tears Foundation and Help at Your Fingertips and the likes plug into rectifying that and making it more accurate and more specific to the regions and the folks that are affected.
Okay, so first, Tears system is one of its kind. It's been developed specifically for this reason, so it's one of its kind. The actual calls received, Bridget, if you look at when it started, right? Say it started in 2013 and it had to be developed and tested and back to the drawing board and back and forth to actually map where specifically the calls come from was quite a process to develop. And this has taken a significant amount of time. Just analyzing the data took a significant amount of time. So to start with, over this period, which is more than 11 years around, Tears has received more than 1 million calls.
Wow.
But when you started refining the data to what can you actually verify, because people call and they drop a call. If you're in an emergency situation, the perpetrator walks in, you drop that call. And for many other reasons, or if other people walk in, or if you get cut off, or there's a poor signal. There are many reasons why calls drop. But the actual calls that we could use for this analysis was from the beginning of 2020 till the end of 2023. So it's a 4-year only call period that we could actually 100% accurately verify those were the callers. So although there were many more calls, that's the number. We had 54,003 calls that could actually be verified. Then we further analyzed it to give you a pattern in terms of the months of year, weeks of day, hours of day, the frequency, periods. We can show you what happened during COVID. We can show you which provinces, districts, and provinces are most prominent.
Wow. I mean, very interesting data, because I think it drills down to so much that perhaps is still lacking in the information that's been correlated around GBV. And let's talk to that data. So from the verified calls that then made up this period between 2020 and 23, of which you extracted data from, what were some of the insights that you got from that 4-year period?
If you look at the report, for example, you will see it shows you the average time of day. When do people call? What is typical? So it was very surprising to see that your highest call volume was between 12 and 1 in the day, which is typically for people working would be lunchtime.
Yeah, right now.
Which indicates if it's people who working that they would not be calling from home, they would be calling from places of safety. But then the other high call volume was between 8 and 10 or at night, which would then obviously be when the actual attacks take place. So remember, you've got 3 services on the Help at Your Fingertips line. So you can ask to be called back by a consultant, which are trained psychologists, or it's an emergency. You just want the nearest place where you can go for help. So you would see that those patterns vary. So the emergency, when would the emergency calls be? When would be the I need someone to help me kind of calls? And nobody has those records, as I say, even though you had other command centers and helplines, they cover the whole range of services, while Tears only covers GBV, any kind of GBV. So those calls are very specific. And we could actually show the exact districts and we give you the ratio per population of the district. So this is a unique data set. Nobody has been able to provide this information. You will know that the GBF command center collapsed.
Yeah.
And you'll also know in the media all the controversy that surrounded it. And that those records were not made public. So people didn't know. And that's, as I said in the beginning, the invisibility of something so prevalent, so prominent, has always been the greatest frustration, because it's like people don't see it.
Yeah.
They hear about it, they see numbers, but it means nothing because they don't see it. Now we actually provide evidence of actual calls made.
And Prof. Kone, you also, you mentioned the fact that obviously with this system, you're able to drill down to the nuts and bolts and take it region by region, district by district. And that means now we could be in a better position to identify where the most urgent needs are needed, right? And what kind perhaps of interventions are needed in specific spaces.
Yes, and in phase 2 of the research, where we look at the DAISY system, Digital Access to Information System, we'll even be giving you a victim profiling. So at that stage of the research, we will be able to tell you the age range, the income, the career, the everything that's not identifying victims. But we will be able to do that as well. So with this data, we can see where is GBV most prevalent in the country. We can also show, for anybody reading the report, there are exact graphs showing you the peaks, the ebbs and peaks. It shows you what frequent days of the week, months of the year, where is it spiking. And that's contrary what we previously thought. People would think, every school holiday, there would be. That was not the case. It was September, October, November that were the highest volumes of call. And then, of course, the times of day, and then interesting to see the different provinces, districts, and municipalities that are most prevalent, because you would automatically assume Gauteng is the worst.
Yes.
It's a high volume, it's got a high number of people, but we found that Limpopo was actually the worst. Followed by Northwest, and then the Free State.
Oh, wow. Interesting. So it would then be interesting to know what that tells us in phase 2, what that tells us about the socio-economic factors perhaps of those particular regions and how those play into the GBV numbers there.
Yes, because remember, GBV is prevalent across all sectors. It's just because, and people forget this, more than 80% of our population is black. So GBV is proportionate. So people often relate to, it's a black, because we're majority black people, but it's across all races, across all income categories. then also remember the income disparity in South Africa, which is also across all sectors. You would have seen maybe in the latest PwC report, for example, that women at that stage in top leadership positions, 13% or something. Mm-hmm. And then the other women in leadership positions become board members with what executive power?
Yeah.
So we're still sitting with that inequality, which means across sectors, you still have women dependent on perpetrators. And the poorer, which is more than 11 million of our population living in extreme poverty. So the poorer, the more vulnerable, because the more invisible, the less access to resources. I was saying earlier, for example, the issue of human trafficking and child sex trafficking. The poorer they disappear. So the scope of GBV is so broad and so extensive, but it affects everybody. If you're a South African, you are either a victim or perpetrator, or you are related to a victim or perpetrator, or you're acquainted with a victim or perpetrator. Sure. Nobody knows nothing about GBV in South Africa.
What a sentiment. Nobody knows nothing about GBV in South Africa. 086 000 2032 and 061 410 4107 is our WhatsApp line if you want to weigh in on our conversation with the professor. Very interesting, findings coming out of this research report. Very precise as well. And obviously this just formulating part one of the research that they've undertaken with the Tears Foundation and the University of Joburg, with phase 2 coming through in Daisy. And of course, we'll get a bit more of that from the professor on the other side. I'm just looking at the time, and I know that we have to go into the headline news. And so maybe we get into a break and then we come back on the other side of 1:30 and continue our conversation with Prof, because I also want to know, Prof, now that we've got all this data, how does this then now help us in the different entities that are fighting GBV and the strategies and policies that need to answer to the data in order for us to curb the situation that we are under? 086 000 2032 061 410 4107 is our WhatsApp line.
The Chill Zone with Bertha Charuma.
Have you ever had a work romance? How did it work? Did it last? Does it last? Or just jeopardize your working life or career?
Work wife. I had one at work. Yeah, things didn't go so well. Let's just say I had my house burnt down. I lost my wife and kids. Yeah, after that, I never wanted a work wife.
It is frightening. It is actually so frightening, and obviously it's worse because he mentions that he had a wife and kids. He had, a life outside of this relationship that was happening at work.
That's Linda Yendes.
Bertha Charuma, Fridays 8 p.m. to 12 a.m.
A very good afternoon. In your headlines this hour, Auditor General Tsakani Maluleke says 924 million rand of resources are being protected as a consequence of the AG's office using its enforcement powers. Police in Harrismith in the Free State have opened an inquest after 4 bodies were found inside a burned truck between Mabate and Tsiame. And Disaster Risk Management in Cape Town says they are on high alert for any possible damage caused by gale force winds. Details of these and other stories coming up 2 o'clock.
Bridget Masinga, weekdays on the Full Circle.
It is a fine Tuesday afternoon, and we're in the midst of a conversation, a very illuminating conversation with Professor Kone Davis, who's the Associate Professor at the Department of Strategic Communications at the University of Johannesburg. And they've partnered with the Tears Foundation in order to release this new research report that's revealing precise statistics of locations and profiles of GBV incidences in the country, utilizing their Help at Your Fingertips fingertips helpline data. And of course, we'll get more information about that helpline. I think a lot of folks would actually, like to keep that on hand. Prof, let's talk as well around now that we've got, this very effective and precise data. How do we then plug it into the GBV prevention strategies and policies, either currently at play or, conversations that are at various stages amongst the various stakeholders that need to come together for the curbing of GBV?
Bridget, our problem is we have got the policies, we have the laws. I was speaking online about the new law that's passed to change the legislation, the establishment of the National Council for Gender-Based Violence and Femicide. All from the top, everything seems to be in place. But what is happening on the ground? If you go to the ground level, you will hear from the National Shelter Association that there are no sufficient places of safety for women to go to. You will hear that the reporting is still not taking place, that the police stations are still understaffed, that the social workers are still not enough. So at the ground level, this is not happening. So what we're hoping to achieve is by publicizing this information, that we can start a bottom-up approach and start supporting the NGOs who are actually doing the work. If you look at the report released by the Commission for Gender Equality, who reported on the progress made with the National Strategic Plan, it's at a snail's pace. It's not fast enough to stop or to slow down the curve of violence that's happening in our country. So we need active intervention at the community level and including the private sector, because many of the victims who are also working, it's 1 out of 3 everywhere, everywhere. From rural to urban to top to bottom, it's everywhere. That there's a better awareness, a better factual information, that it's not a guess, it's not just a statistic being thrown around. We can show these were the actual emergency calls. Some of the emergency calls, because as I mentioned at the beginning, calls drop because of various reasons. But the ones that could be verified, where they're coming from. So we can narrow it down to those districts and municipalities and say there needs to be a community collaboration. All stakeholders need to work together. Employers, government, police services, National Prosecuting Authority, community centers. Everybody needs to work together if we're going to address this. And if we know where to start, that is where we need leadership from the bottom up, not top down. It's too slow.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't want us to run out of our allocated Zoom time. If you are streaming, then you see the professor is on visual, without also re-emphasizing the help at your fingertips helpline, because it is a resource that is needed in the country. Tell us a bit more about how it works. So where do we dial? What do we dial?
Okay, so the name Tears is easy to remember.
Yes.
So anybody can access Tears Foundation. Okay, and that's where all the resources are available. The toll-free helpline is *134* 7355#.
Okay.
And that gives people access to that help service 24/7, any time of the day, because it's not a caller on the other, a receiver answering a call. It's a service that picks up on the many options you choose and directs you to the help you seek. So for victims of GBV, this is really important because of the stigma and the fear of the perpetrator.
Yeah.
That it's anonymous, it's private, but they can get directed to where to go for help. And should they require further support, they can select that option and get someone call them to give them further advice on what to do and how to deal with their situation. So it's free.
Yeah.
You don't need data, you don't need airtime, it's a free service. And that is recorded on a system that it can be geolocated so that they can direct the person to the nearest available resource.
Yeah. So you said *134* 7355#.
Yes.
Lovely stuff. Prof, I look forward to our future conversations as, this work with Tears Foundations continues to build on because, as you said, phase 1, just showing incredible results, and obviously phase 2, now incorporating DAISY, which is the Digital Abuse Information System, which will narrow down the profile as well of GBV victims. Really, really incredible work, and much appreciate the time with you this afternoon. That was Professor Connie Davis, who's the Associate Professor at the Department of Strategic Communication with the Faculty of Humanities at the University of Johannesburg. Let's take a quick pause and then we'll come back and we'll get into stages, pages, screens and more.
Your geyser would have hot water, but some people overloaded the transformer with their illegal connections. You're late again and the robots don't work. Some people vandalized it for copper. The whole community doesn't have electricity because some people have been bridging meters for a small fee, and now the transformer has exploded due to overloading. Don't allow illegal connections by criminals to inconvenience you and your community. Report criminals to ESCOM on 0800 11 2722 or the SAPS. Save your transformer. Save lives.
The Buccaneers are highly against anything that will prevent them from getting to the final as they chase their third consecutive title. But the citizens are on a mission to spoil that party. This is the second leg of the MTN 8 semi-final. Defending champs Orlando Pirates FC tackle Cape Town City FC on Saturday, 31 August at 2:30 p.m. live on SABC 1 and SABC radio stations. Also available at your fingertips on SABC Plus and SABCSport.com. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
For the love of the game.
Are you shopping around for the best car insurance deal on the market? Well, 46-year-old Zanele got a great deal on her car insurance when she called Outsurance. She now pays only 1,313 Rand to insure her white 2023 Audi Q2 1.4T FSI Sportline Stronic. Get an Outsurance quote and see if you could save. SMS out to 30754 now. That's out to 30754 now. Outsurance is a licensed FSP and T's and C's do apply.
Stages, pages, screens and more on The Full Circle with Bridget Masinga.
It is the Full Circle with myself, Bridget Masinga, on this fine Tuesday. We're going to get into our conversation in just a moment around stages, pages, screens and more. We're going to look at a new exhibition that's on show at the Oliver Hayes Art Museum in Bloemfontein, celebrating South Africa's journey to democracy. Let's go to a quick break.
Sakina, we are vindicated as the Patriotic Alliance because at local level, we have always said that the DA is very arrogant, is very rude, it wants to be the boss.
And this is very unsettling. If it's unsettling for us as politicians, it's also unsettling for the citizens. And you can actually feel the crispness in the air, Sakina, that the people are tense.
Deputy President Kenny Kunene, and we also have African Christian Democratic Party's spokesperson in Gauteng, Bishop Dalton Adams.
Sakina Kamwendo on SAFM. The Market Update, Monday to Thursday, 6 to 7 p.m.
Want to stay ahead of the financial game? Join us tonight from 6 to 7 p.m. for an insightful journey through the day's market developments, financial updates, and investment news. Tune in for your daily dose of financial intelligence as we navigate the twists and turns of the financial landscape with expert insights. Only on the SAFM Market Update.
SAFM Market Update with Jimmy Muyaha. The Full Circle with Bridget Masinga.
It is stages, pages, screens and more as we look at a new exhibition that's currently on show at the Oliver Hayes Art Museum, celebrating South Africa's journey to democracy, with curator of the exhibition and education officer at the Art Museum, Natalie Bernardo. How are you doing, Natalie?
Hi, I'm doing well. How are you?
I'm great. Thank you so much for taking the time. So exciting, so exciting. Everything that's happening in Bloemfontein. Firstly, who knew Bloemfontein was such a melting pot of fabulous creative and cultural endeavors? Finding out so much this year as the year unfolds with everything that's going on. But let's look at this exhibition that's being hosted at the Oliver Hayes Art Museum, celebrating our 30 years of a democratic journey. And this is very much a significant one, right? Because you guys are honoring artists who have shaped the museum's permanent collection.
Oh yes, absolutely. It is an incredible honor for us to be at a point where we can shed light on the artists that have been acquired, or artists that have been acquired or purchased in the last 30 years. I mean, we never get to a point where we can solely just focus on that. And since this year is celebrating democracy throughout the entire year, we felt the need to make that space, or the permanent collection space, to focus on that.
Let's also, perhaps unpack for us and tell us more about the museum's collection through the decades.
Yeah, so the permanent collection of Lebanese has been, we started with getting artists or artworks donated to us, and then there was a time where we got Paul Marma donations as well. Paul Marma is a place where we got a lot of art, specifically the Norman Catherines that we have. If anyone is familiar with that, I apologize if you are not. And then contemporary artists as well. We've purchased from Art Bank of South Africa, which is also in Bloemfontein. And yeah, since we are speaking about the diversity of the permanent collection, there's so many artworks, different styles, different mediums, artists from different backgrounds. We have well-known, renowned artists as well, like Philip Bester. We have Nora Mabasa. We have recently retired Mary Sabane.
Yeah.
So, and that's just among many more. So, yes.
I mean, you've got quite the impressive list right there. Younger contemporary artists, the likes of Mary, who was just being celebrated just a week ago. But I also know forming part of the exhibition are the likes of Alexis Prella and, as you said, Nora Mabaso. And these are names that are quite revered within the context of South African art, but also internationally acclaimed. Some more known in specific spaces and others lesser known, but nonetheless their contribution to the artistic history of South Africa goes undisputed. And let's talk about what also, and I don't know if through the conversations with yourself and your predecessors, what also influenced specific additions into the permanent collection over the years?
I think we would mainly focus on art that has a sort of representation for different groups. So we try to make it as diverse as possible, and we try to represent a lot of groups as possible, but also different mediums. Like I said previously, I know a lot of the acquisitions that we do have in our permanent collection is also based on the curriculum of the visual arts in high school. So I'm not sure if you are familiar, but people like Mary Sabande is also in the permanent collection, Alexis Prella, among others, so that I can't think about it at the top of my head, but among others. So these are representing different groups, even if it's high school students, people, like you mentioned earlier, international people. We do acquire South African artists, but it is also important for us to make anyone feel, because we do get a lot of foreigners and people from other countries as well. So it's important for them to also be able to relate and to understand our collection,
Absolutely.
That makes sense.
Absolutely. And by way of impact, the artistic impact and influence that some of your featured artists have had, maybe even if we hone into someone like Nora Mabaso, who is renowned for her exceptional wood carving skills. Talk to us about someone like that and her legacy and her heritage in the artistic space.
Yeah, Noria Mabasa is someone that we appreciate a lot, or highlight a lot also in our permanent collection, because of where she came from, also how she started, because she started with this medium, this wood, that is a very masculine medium. Wood sculpture is also a very masculine way of making art, and she was the first woman who was able to do that. So I think for young artists, or any artist who wants to go for something that they don't necessarily go for, or want to start something that's not, it's not very conventional for them, or you know what I mean. So Noria Mabasa is someone that we can use in our exhibitions, and we can talk about it, and we can start influencing these young women artists. For example, we have an exhibition currently on show, Kutlana Munyai's debut solo exhibition, and she's using this medium. She's a young artist, but she's using this medium, and she's completely changing a way of thinking about this medium to give it a little bit more context. She uses this plastic, and she works with plastic and creates a way of making art, I think, that we didn't even think about. So it's interesting impact that someone like Noria Mabasa has on women in South Africa.
Yeah, it sounds like a wonderful glimpse into a history of a very diverse nation through the lens of its artistic practitioners. We appreciate the time with you this afternoon, Natalie. That was Natalie Bernardo, who's the curator of this exhibition. It is currently on 30 Years of Democracy, celebrating the 30th anniversary of freedom. And it's on at the Oliver Hayes Art Museum in Bloemfontein. So if you find yourself that side of the world, it might be worth you popping by and having a look at what's in store. Or if you're just driving through Bloem and you're making it a stopover, this could be something for you to go and explore with the family. Very, very interesting indeed. I think one of these days we should take this show on the road to Bloemfontein. There's so much that's being activated there by way of the artistic and cultural calendar. But right now, though, it's just a few shakes before 10 to 2 o'clock, and then Kids Corner is coming right through. That should take us to the top of the hour, and then Madupi Makhalamela is going to bring you the 2 o'clock news.
This program is brought to you by SABC Education, enriching minds, enriching lives.
Hello, my name is Zoya Kwenza. I am 8 years old. I am at Rosebank Primary School. When I see someone else being bullied, I go and tell the teachers. I think people are jealous, that's why they are bullying people. I think you'll be bullied as an adult if you don't speak up as a kid. Thank you.
My name is Michaela Ndlovu. I am 9 years old. I'm in Rosebank, and bullying is like when someone takes your lunch and you says no, but then they said, I'm no more talking to you, but then that's bullying. When I see someone else being bullied, I feel sad and I feel like helping them, so then I tell a teacher. I think maybe it's because some of them just don't like the others, or some of them did something wrong to the other one. To reduce bullying at school, we can do a non-bullying show. You can put a bully and then you put someone honest, and then you show people that bullying is not nice because someone feels sad, and then you show them if you felt sad it wouldn't be nice. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Cecilia Harpani and I go to Rosebank Primary School. I am 12 years old. I think bullying is when somebody does something to make you feel hurt or sad about what you do or who you are. When I see someone else being bullied, it makes me feel sad and just makes me wonder what's going on that makes them feel that they're greater than anyone else. I think it's important to speak up when you're being bullied because holding those feelings inside isn't very good for you. You could get very stressed and that isn't very good for your health. I think we could all work together to create an environment where bullying isn't a thing. When we all work together and we're all happy and we're kind to each other, we don't make others feel hurt or left out. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Siyabonga Ntiwande and I am 10 years old and I go to Rosebank Primary School. When I see someone else being bullied, I think that person that is bullying the other person has their own issues. That's why they are taking it out to another person that never did anything. What I think to be done to reduce bullying is that maybe at school they can be counseling and then they can take those people that are bullying other people and the lady or the man that is doing counseling can talk to them about their emotions and how they feel and why they are doing so. If I would see someone else being bullied, I would go to that person and tell that person to stop. But if that person does not want, I would go and tell the teachers. Hi, my name is Tando Ronkosi Chikalanga. I'm 9 years old and I'm in Rosebank Primary. Bullying is example when you make fun of someone and call them names and you tease them and you talk about their size, you say and you shame them and all. When I see someone else being bullied, I honestly feel sorry for them and I wish I could do something. I think people bully other people because at home they're probably dealing with some issues and they take it out on some people. To reduce bullying in schools, I think someone should speak to them to stop and someone should understand why they're bullying someone and take it easy on them.
Hi, my name is Luniko Mkokibana. I am a learner at Rosebank Primary School. I am 9 years old. When I see someone else being bullied, I feel sad. I feel bad for them because they don't deserve to be bullied. If there's a bully listening to the radio right now, I ask you to go and ask an adult for some advice because we don't like bullies in this country and we don't like being bullied because we feel sad and we feel bad and we feel like we wanna like end our lives.
Hi, my name is Timologo Nkemeleng. I am 10 years old. Bullying is when somebody teases or hits someone. When I see someone else being bullied, I feel sad because they don't deserve to be bullied. To reduce bullying in schools, I request that the people who are being bullied, they should go to Childline for help. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Silama Ramasia. I am 10 years old and I go to Rosebank Primary. And I think bullying is when someone is teasing someone or hurting them or pulling them, like for example, if someone is pulling your hair or tripping you to the ground for exactly no reason. When I see someone else being bullied, I go to them and I ask the person who is bullying the other person. They should stop and I try to get them calm. Then as soon as they are calm, I take them to a teacher so the teacher can stop the problem or solve the conflict.
Hi, my name is Bushle. I am in grade 5. I'm 11 years old. I go to Rosebank Primary School. What can be done to stop bullying in schools is to just fight for yourself and do not allow anyone to bully you. When you are bullying someone, you should stop because it also hurts you inside. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Raxi Mulukuma and I'm 10 years old. To reduce bullying in schools, they must stop bullying people and must treat people the way they want to be treated. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Lindo Moshe. I am from Rosebank Primary School and I'm 8 years old. Bullying is a type of way when people hurt your feelings and when you feel uncomfortable when people hurt your feelings.
When I see someone else being bullied, I feel sad because I don't actually like people being bullied because it hurts my heart. I think other people bully others it's because other people can't think of other people's feelings and how they feel inside. To reduce bullying from school, we can start making posters and post them everywhere telling people to stop bullying because it can hurt other people.
Hello friends and happy Tuesday. Today let's chat about the impact of bullying in schools. It's a serious issue that affects countless students around the globe. Bullying can manifest in various ways, including teasing, name-calling, or even physical aggression. When a student faces bullying, it can lead to feelings of sadness, fear, and isolation. No one should endure this, especially in a place like school, which should be a safe haven for all. One major consequence of bullying is the damage it inflicts on a student's self-esteem. Constantly being belittled or targeted can lead them to internalize those negative messages, causing them to feel unworthy and lose their confidence. Over time, this can spiral into depression or anxiety, making it increasingly difficult for them to concentrate on their studies or enjoy time with friends. Moreover, bullying impacts the entire school atmosphere. It can instill fear among students, making some hesitant to defend themselves or others for fear of becoming the next victim. Bullying impacts the entire school atmosphere. It can instill fear among students, making some hesitant to defend themselves or others for fear of becoming the next victim. This creates an unwelcoming and unfriendly environment. It's important for us as children to support one another and take a stand against bullying to foster a positive and secure school community. The effects of bullying can linger longer after the incidents occur, affecting both the victim and the perpetrator. Those who are bullied can carry emotional scars into adulthood, struggling with trust and forming healthy relationships. Bullies may miss out on learning how to treat others with compassion and respect. It's important for everyone to recognize that bullying is unacceptable and we must all join forces to put an end to it.
This program was brought to you by SABC Education. Enriching minds, enriching lives. The SAFM University Debate Challenge is back. Join us for the 1-hour debate on This Week Today with Oliver Dixon from 6 to 7 p.m. on Friday, the 30th of August 2024 at the SABC in Bloemfontein. The University of the Free State will take on the Central University of Technology in what promises to be a nail-biting debate. The SAFM University Debate Challenge is an independent, non-partisan progressive initiative seeking to develop confident communicators, critical thinkers, and empowered global citizens. If you want to attend the debate, you can email info@safm.co.za. SAFM, leading the conversations that move us.
Essential Cover from Outsurance pays out claims in cash, allowing you to choose your own panel beater. SMS card to 43187 now.
The top stories this hour: the AG's office uses its enforcement powers and 4 bodies found in a burnt truck in the Free State. A very good afternoon. Auditor General Tsakani Maluleke says 924 million rand of resources are being protected as a consequence of the AG's office using its enforcement powers. The AG's office was given enforcement powers in April 2019. The Auditor General briefed Parliament on the 2022-23 local government audit outcomes. She says they have found that when a material irregularity notice is issued, then accounting officers act on the flagged matters.
In terms of resource protection, 261 million rand has come back into the coffers of respective municipalities. 218 of financial loss has been prevented, and 444 million rand of financial losses are being recovered. That's a total of 924 million rand of resources being protected as a consequence of the AGSA using its powers of enforcement.
Police in Harrismith in the Free State have opened an inquest after 4 bodies were found inside a burnt truck between Mabate and Tsiame. Police say the truck belonged to a 35-year-old man from Magwane village in Kwakwa. The bodies are those of a 10-year-old boy, an 8-year-old girl, a 1-year-old boy, and their 32-year-old mother. Police are searching for a 5th person. Growth in the digital economy could contribute up to 91.4 billion rand to the South African economy by 2035. This is the key finding of the research report by NASPERS and the Mapungube Institute for Strategic Reflection, MISTRA, on the digital platform economy in South Africa. The findings aim to provide an assessment of the digital space in the country and on the continent, and to identify what barriers exist to unlock potential. Here's NASPERS's Shamila Letswalo.
Industry. So the idea is we've got full support, from all our stakeholders. The idea is that collectively we take responsibility and take action. We won't be able to do it in our silos and alone, and we're going to have to, if we want to work together as a country and kind of, develop this value for the country, we're all going to have to put our shoulders to the wheel.
The visiting professor at the Wits School of Governance, Ibo Mandaza, says, like many liberation movements on the continent, the ANC will never stage a comeback. For the first time since the 1994 elections, the ANC dipped below 50% and was forced into a government of national unity. Mandaza says the ANC is nearing its end.
We have to be realistic. 30 years after your so-called democracy, the ANC has long served its purpose. It not revived to the same form it was during the time of the struggle. It can be revived only under a different form, a different content, a new leadership. It's actually waning. It's almost at its end. It's almost dead. The ANC, like most political parties in Africa, are mere platforms now for elections, through which individuals like you and I can get into parliament and into the state. The ANC, like other political parties, ruling parties in Africa, have become a vehicle for the comprador bourgeoisie. People who make fortunes out of corruption. We have them in Zimbabwe. People who have never had a salary, but are billionaires.
And Disaster Risk Management in Cape Town says that they are on high alert for any possible damage caused by gale force winds. Spokesperson Charlotte Powell says no incidents have been reported thus far. She says they are on standby to attend to any incidents caused by the inclement weather.
According to the South African Weather Service, the rainfall and wind gusts being experienced across the metropole will start easing off in the early hours of tomorrow. But we are mindful of the fact that some low-lying areas remain waterlogged as a result of the record rainfall experienced in July. City services are on standby to attend to any impacts that may arise, and our humanitarian partners too are on alert in the event that soft relief is required. We ask the public to please be on the lookout for any falling debris or other obstructions caused by strong winds.
Recapping the top story at 2, Auditor General Zakani Maluleka says 924 million rand of resources are being protected as a consequence of the AG's office using its enforcement powers. For SAFM News, Kimudupima Khalimeli.
And that's the news for this hour. Theft, accident and 1 million rand liability cover all covered by Outsurance Essential. Get a quote today by simply SMSing car to 43187. Your car may not be old, but driving without insurance is a risk every time you're on the road. Don't take the gamble. Outsurance Essential is affordable insurance for older cars, giving you up to 1 million rand liability cover and loads more. Plus, claims are paid in cash, so you can use your own panel beater. Outsurance Essential is priced for cars older than 5 years and valued at under 125,000 rand and not financed. Simply SMS car to 43187 or call 0860 60,000 today. Outsurance is a licensed FSP and T's and C's do apply.
At Ashupur, we understand the needs of those we serve. We are over 110 years old and we are still here to serve you. Named Best Life Insurer by Forbes, would like to thank you for helping us grow and tell our story into the future. You made us the trusted insurer we are today. SMS serve to 44366 and we'll call you back. Ashupur is an insurer licensed to conduct life insurance business, an authorized financial services provider. FSP 53, T's and C's to apply.
Masandawana want to impress the Yellow Nation with victory in the first clash against Tellies to get to the second encounter with huge smiles. However, the maroon and gold outfit want to dominate headlines as the football brains that knows how to stop Bafana Bastille. This is the first leg of the MTN 8 semi-final. Wafa Wafa! Catch Mamelodi Sundowns FC versus Stellenbosch FC Wednesday, 28 August at 6:30 p.m. Live on SABC Sport on TTT Channel 4, SABC 3 and SABC radio stations. Also available at your fingertips on SABC Plus and SABCSport.com. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
For the love of the game.
Every day our children are exposed to relentless marketing of unhealthy foods where they live, learn and play. This aggressive marketing of unhealthy foods to children can shape their eating habits and food preferences for the rest of their lives. I'm your host, Crystal Audison. Is big food stalking our children? Watch Chew on This on healer.org.
The Full Circle with Bridget Masinga, Monday to Friday, 1 to 3 p.m.
Daipururuka kuna maivangu Daindanga ndine makumbumana Daimanya ndoenda kuna bababa Daipururuka 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 kuna maivangu Daindine makumbumana Daindanga ndine makumbumana Daimanya kani Daimanya ndoenda
kaleng matlhaleng go go buiwang ka puo popo le maele teng setswana sa teng se le boteng bometla taola banna teng magageng a go madipela go re batang sa mokotla sa mpa re mpampetsa re tlhaba re bua re besa seno se re se bitsa re re boitumelo maropeng go tlhokega poelo re bue ka tsa botshelo jwa seng botshelo ba motho ga pele a re boele semele ke ka moo setshilwana e sule lelwala Daipururuka
is Bongo Muffin coming through with Kuria Uno. And that is, of course, how we kick off the top of the hour. Every hour of the show, every single day, we have a palate cleanser by way of music, just to sort of realign the chakras a little bit before we get into the next topic of conversation. Very important, especially during these lunchtime hours. We wake up and just the onslaught of news and conversation and topic and debate. And so where we take the moments to breathe, we got to take the moments to breathe and thoroughly enjoy them. It's just gone 10 past 2 o'clock. We're getting into a conversation now with Daniel Hollandaise, a clinical psychologist, and he dips into the show on the occasion. Most of the time, he's living his best coastal life, and this week he just happens to be down here in the concrete jungle. How are you doing?
I'm so happy to be here. And it always adds a better layer when we're in person. Eh?
Right? It really does. It's always interesting when I encounter, male clinical psychologists, because you don't get male psychologists a lot. Like, you're there, but but not really, but you're there. So it's fabulous. Lovely to have you in the studio. So earlier on, I was saying to my listeners, and we're having this conversation on the back of this Psychology Today article. And I was asking my listeners if, that phrase that we hear every day, shame on you. Yes. Which at times, depending on what sort of led to the situation, can really sting emotionally and can feel a bit devastating to the soul and the senses, and I asked them to just share with us the last time they felt a sense of shame, perhaps, or a sense of that unworthiness, and how they overcame that. But I also think, Daniel, just off the gate, a lot of us maybe have a misconception as to the word shame or
Absolutely.
the effects of shame, and maybe let's get to grips with that, because even when it was presented to me as a topic of conversation, I sort of squinted a little bit and I was like, well, is it worthy of us having this whole conversation around shame? So let's get to understand just the depth and the wholeness of shame.
I think my favorite differentiation of shame is from that new book from Wahbi Long called Nation on the Couch. Real must read around South African psychology. And he differentiates between guilt and shame. And I think sometimes when we think about shame, we actually mean guilt. Mm-hmm. So guilt is when I've done something wrong.
Yeah.
And he says that the solution to guilt is acknowledgement and atonement, because when you do something wrong, you're doing something wrong towards other people. They have to pay the cost for it, and it's important that you atone. Shame, on the other hand, is when you hold other people's perceptions or prejudice within your own self. So there we're talking about things like a person's perception or prejudice around your socioeconomic levels, or, where we talk about colonial impositions, or you might have experienced it with elite knowledge bases. I remember English wasn't my first language, and sometimes I would get mixed up with words, and I would say bury instead of bury, and we notice that, we know that happens often in society. Those become indicators, and there's shame involved. Now that's a silly example, but it becomes a lot more pronounced within our society. And the difficulty with shame is because you're actually holding other people's prejudice and other people's perceptions on yourself, the solution to that is not going to be resolved by yourself. And so what you hope for is amnesia, that they forget whatever the incident was. The actual answer is that we need to learn how to let go of holding. I live in Cape Town, and they have a saying there, wat sal die mense sê?
Yes. What are the people going to say?
Yeah.
That's what Tinaband. I think it comes in all official languages.
Absolutely. Because we all have the same problem. But I think it comes into that kind of place is when we worry so much about our identity and our sense of self-worth coming from externalized from ourselves, then we open ourselves up to being to be able to hold shame within ourselves. Now, it's not that means that it's an individual's responsibility when they're shamed.
Yeah.
I mean, we're never going to blame a person because of other people's prejudice or stigmatization of themselves. The community has a responsibility to change.
Yeah.
But that's difficult to put through and difficult to place. But let me
absolutely
pause there.
No, and so it's other people's perceptions and prejudice that are on self, that are imposed on self. Now, I wonder, is it like most, and I don't know if I used the term correct here, like most psychosocial sort of traumas and blueprints, is it something that can also stem from childhood?
Absolutely.
Inevitably, maybe through your relations with parents and those closest to you?
Yeah, I think on 3 different levels. We know, especially, it's the end of GBV awareness and fighting against GBV. We know that there's a lot of victim blaming that still happens in society. And we know that often that brings about its own form of shame, which often prevents people from seeking the care that they need because they don't feel safe within the societies, which we hope society will change. But that would be one example of that. And if it happened in childhood, then that shame often develops then throughout your lifetime until you're able to reconnect that through a healing relationship. We talk about possibly the shame of an altercation or maybe a parent that shames you. That often talks about a parent's own insecurities within themselves.
Yeah.
And they don't know how to resolve it. And especially, your children are always at least 50% your DNA.
Oh, yes.
So, I know that with my own relationship with fatherhood is that your kids trigger you because they represent at least 50% of you. Yeah. And if you don't know how to resolve that within yourself, then you often project that onto your kids or make that a difficulty with your kids. And then the kids will have to sit with that shame. And then the third one, and the one that's often not spoken about, is just downright structural violence. Sorry for going historical on this, but I think it's important. Is that we are one of the most social unequal societies in the world. We know that's fact, and we know that came from the apartheid states and that inferiority superiority complex that was and the horrible laws that were put into place to divide us and to shame us. And on the basis of that structural violence takes a long time to resolve. Prejudice within the workplace, perceptions of people in job interviews, what car your father drives, which shops you shop at. And we're not yet in a place in society where we are able to fight those perceptions. And so that also brings a lot of shame.
Interesting, because even when you take it back into the context of history, we learn new terms on the show every day. You talk about structural violence, for instance, we just will say casually the consequence of apartheid or the consequence of marginalization. And you don't understand the sort of the generational traumas the way you've just outlined it. But because I don't want to break your train of thought, let's take a quick break here as I see the clock counting down for 2:20, and then we'll come back on the other side and continue exploring this conversation. Our lines are open on 086 000 2032 for you to give us a call, or 061 410 4107 is our WhatsApp line.
Catch me, Bonang Mateba, on a fresh reality series that showcases the business behind being a business. Get to experience an intimate look at my life with family, personal growth, and my mission to uplift young women. Jet with me as we prepare to crown a lucky chaser. Be grounded, be entertained, and be dazzled. Monday, 6 p.m. on S3, it's a date with you and B. Catch Bedazzled by Bonang on S3 every Monday at 6 p.m.
The Citizens are fueled up to grind a very important win in the first 90 minutes against the Buccaneers. But the big boys from Orlando are just too hungry to triumph and leave the Mother City painted in black and white. Bonke bathi, siya phambili. This is the first leg of the MTN 8 semi-final. Wafa wafa. Cape Town City FC battles it out with Orlando Pirates on Tuesday, 27 August at 7 p.m. Live on SABC Sport on DTT Channel 4, SABC 3 and SABC radio stations. Also available at your fingertips on SABC Plus and SABCSport.com. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
For the love of the game.
The SAFM University Debate Challenge is back. Join us for the 1-hour debate on This Week Today with Oliver Dixon from 6 to 7 p.m. on Friday, the 30th of August 2024 at the SABC in Bloemfontein. The University of the Free State will take on the Central University of Technology in what promises to be a nail-biting debate. The SAFM University Debate Challenge is an independent, non-partisan progressive initiative seeking to develop confident communicators, critical thinkers, and empowered global citizens. If you want to attend the debate, you can email info@safm.co.za. SAFM, leading the conversations that move us. SAFM is celebrating its 88th birthday, and what better way to celebrate than with you, our loyal listener. We will be giving away 8,800 to 10 lucky listeners during the month of August. To stand a chance of winning, stay tuned to SAFM and SMS the keyword SAFM88 followed by your name to 41391 and listen to the station throughout the day where you could be selected as a winner. SMSs are charged at R1.50 per SMS. Free SMSs and SMS bundles do not apply.
Happy birthday, happy birthday, happy birthday, happy birthday.
Arts, culture, and robust conversations with Bridget Masinga.
Okay, so now that we've actually got a lovely, full, rich understanding of this concept of shame, as we ask you the question, how do you think culturally or societal norms have actually shaped your experiences around shame? And have you had these, I guess, internally held beliefs and perceptions around yourself that have caused you to feel a sense of shame because of what people have perceived about you, about your family, and the perceptions that they've had, or the prejudice that they've leveled upon yourself and your family, your siblings growing up maybe? 086 000 2032 is the number that you can call us on, and 061 410 4107 is our WhatsApp line. If you want to send through a WhatsApp voice note, you're more than welcome to do so. And Concha, what was the term? Structural
violence.
Structural violence. And I love the context, because you as much as you give us this broad historical context, we don't think about the continuous sort of connectedness of the emotions, right? And in just the most sort of human ways of existence.
Yeah.
And we don't think about the impact that has had on us as a society.
Yeah.
You know, I thought of whole communities as you painted that picture.
Yeah.
Whole communities of people, collective peoples of color who felt a sense of shame and unworthiness about circumstances that weren't even really within their control.
Absolutely. And then the most dangerous thing is when you embody that within yourself, which doesn't belong to you. That really is where, I hate to use a pathological term like mental illness, but that's where the suppression takes place. That's where you aren't then trapped. A better way of looking at it is probably if you use the language of Sobukwe or Biko, where they talk about chains of the mind. So these perceptions, these chains are hypothetical. They're in our thinking.
Yeah.
And those chains of the mind can hold you back, where you don't go for a certain job interview, or you don't go for a certain. I'll give you an example.
Yeah.
In Cape Town, they will often say. Sorry, I'm using all these
It's
Cape Town
okay,
examples.
you Cape Townian.
They'll often say that if you say to them, "I've got a government job,"
Yes.
then your family will come with champagne bottles, all celebrating. But the moment you tell them that you're starting your own business, then the uncles will be called in. Listen, we got to talk a little bit here. Starting your own business. Are you really ready for this? Is this something that you really want to do? And that comes from that chain of the mind of, always the foreman, never the owner. And we often miss where those kind of, I don't know what you call it, those kind of habits, cultural habits, if you like, but it's not cultural, where they come from. But we don't realize that they come from a space where from perceptions and prejudice within societies that were run before the one that we're in, where that was basically put into the structures. You're not allowed to be a business owner if you're a certain skin color. That's where it comes from, and it perpetuates through society into now, because those chains of the mind are difficult to break. And now we inherit it, but without understanding where it comes from. And so in that way, we're still captured, we're still held by those restrictions.
Now, Daniel, how do we begin to sort of address this, right? Especially if whether we're looking at, sort of that historical chains of the mind, or we're taking it into the family dynamics, right?
Yes.
And we're looking at the intergenerational behaviors from parent to parent to parent, because you could be parenting unawares that you are inflicting pain, you are inflicting shame, or you are embedding shame in your child, and you aren't aware, because that's all you know to be as love or a nurturing, or motivation. Some people even say it's motivation.
So there's a way of answering it on the individual level, and there's a way of answering on the collective level.
Sure, let's explore both.
Should we start with the individual? For example, when I was reading the article that you shared with me, I could so see that was not written by a psychologist in South Africa.
And I set you up for failure, because then my eyes went to the clock. I set you up for failure. Please, can you hold that thought for me? And then we'll come back on the other side of Modupi Makhalemele.
Thank you very much, Bridge, and a very good afternoon. With the news headlines this hour, the airports company AXA has terminated a contract of over 100 million rand for automated border control e-gates and single token projects awarded to the French technology company IDEMIA. City Power says it is almost 10 billion rand in outstanding payments, and Auditor General Tsakani Maluleke says 924 million rand of resources are being protected as a consequence of the AG's office using its enforcement powers. A full news update coming up 3 o'clock.
You're listening to Bridget Masinga on SAFM.
We are in conversation with Daniel Hollander, is a clinical psychologist. He's busy conferring here with his colleague. But, when you're on the phone, she's not with you. Our lines are open at 086 000 2032 and 061 4104 So we're about to explore sort of this shame through the collective and through the individual.
Yeah, I got beautifully busted there, but I think half of that is that I can say, I'm adopted as an African, so in that regards, collectively we're stronger than individually. Yeah?
Absolutely.
On the individual basis, I think there's no better way, especially from a South African context, than the brilliant chapter We Blacks in I Write What I Like from Steve Biko. And in there he stipulates a beautiful step-by-step guide of how to do it. And he says the first step is for you to come to yourself. So first be aware that you're sitting with this and come to yourself as a human being. The second step is to infuse yourself with pride and dignity. Very important, because we are inherently a proud and dignified people.
Yeah.
We're allowed to be. We're humans, you know. The third step from and if we don't have that within ourselves, infuse ourselves with pride and dignity, then it becomes difficult for us to move forward. The third step is now I'm getting there. Pump back energy into your empty shell. Do things that will give you energy, that will give you movement again. Now, I know that a lot of things cost money to put energy back in. But, I mean, when Steve Biko wrote that, he wrote that in apartheid South Africa, living in difficult circumstances. And I think, you know, I mean, I'm so grateful for the Guijo squad and what they're busy doing in regards to the spiritualism around us. But the Ubuntu hymns in a very difficult circumstances brought back energy to the people. And we see it now as well with the Women's March in 2019, the Rose Must Fall. We're bringing back energy into our empty shells. We're a proud people. The fourth step, and then once we're in that space, once we're in a space where we're dignified, we've pumped back energy into ourselves, then we're in a position to be able to do the fourth step, which is to see the complicity that we've done in allowing evil to reign supreme in our country of birth. And in this context of shame, how I would interpret that is, you are not at all responsible for the shame that was put on you. But when you hold on to the shame, and I'm talking to myself here as well, I often battle with letting go of shame. But if I hold on to that shame, I need to allow myself to forgive myself and realize that that was where I need to let go, and that's where I need to forgive myself. And only once, and then he carries on, this is what we call an inward-looking process. This is the definition of black consciousness. And that, for me, is a very important way of how to deal with shame on the individual level. On the collective level, and I was hoping to find this as I was talking, there's another way of doing it. And I think it's where we get stuck around culture. Yeah. Because culture can feel like something that we can be very proud of, and we should be.
Yeah.
But it can also feel like something that's like a noose around our necks. And especially when we feel that whatever it is that we're asked to do is actually putting us in a disempowered state. And I'm going to give you Biko twice today, but this is a really interesting quote, and I didn't realize it came from Biko. But listen to this, and I think this is more of a collective response. He says, innovation is part of the natural development of any culture. A culture is essentially society's composite answers to the varied problems of life. We are experiencing new problems every day, and whatever we do adds to the richness of our cultural heritage under one condition, as long as it has the human at its center. And that opens up quite an interesting, and I think almost the newer generation that's coming into fore now is really able to highlight and bring that in, is that's opening us up to a different type of thinking, is that culture is something dynamic, it's something engageable, and as long as we hold on to our core values, you know, Ubuntu has two legs, right? The one is I am through you, you are through us, but the second leg is ethics.
Yes.
And if you don't have ethics with Ubuntu, it's like a flamingo. I mean, only a flamingo can stand on one leg, right?
Yeah.
So it unstabilizes you. And I think that's the big thing of where we need to be at, is we need the wisdom to prevail within our societies. We need our elders. We're missing elders. I think that's why we have a leadership issue. And I think as well, on top of that, is the other thing of Biko, material want is bad enough, but coupled with spiritual poverty, it kills. And if you see that all in combination of each other, then something very important starts to take place. Is we need to be able to be in a place as people where we bring the human being back into the center of our engagements. I think we've depended a lot on external factors to do so. We just had elections. I find elections always very triggering, because you know, all your brothers and sisters that you were collectively with, now all of a sudden we're all arguing with each other. And we've all got the same goal, right? Is to rebuild our society. and to bring down structural violence. But any activity that you do, as long as it's keeping the human being at the center, adds to our cultural heritage. And that brings a different type of agency. Then shame doesn't have a role anymore.
Listen, you've got me suddenly going, okay, I need to go back to Biko
you know, those books are gathering dust in bargain books, and they just deserve to be read and enjoyed.
Right?
Absolutely.
But also just the connection of sort of, you know, that sort of philosophical thinking to really the crux of humanity and the nuts and bolts, and human is fundamentally the construct of emotion.
Yes.
And emotion is, in my understanding at least, is a reflection of experience. Like, you know, just coming out in all kinds of interesting ways. I think at least 10 of us who were listening to you are going, okay, we need to go reread Biko with a different lens all of a Sunday. But 086 000 2032 and 061 410 4107. Let's actually go to WhatsApp.
Let's have the conversation. WhatsApp voice notes on 0614 104 107.
Yeah, I think one of the challenges for psychology is that it often doesn't reach the public realm. So I'm glad we're having a discussion on public radio. However, psychoanalysis itself has certain problematics within its structure, within its language. And one of them is the idea that sort of people are kind of stuck in themselves, and that they are the ones that will, through personal work, overcome their challenges. But if we're looking at our current situation, where what we consider normal is actually that which excludes people, like when your social system, when capitalism excludes people, for example, and that creates a huge amount of trauma. It's got nothing to do with your parents and such and things. It's how you enact that within society.
Hi Bridget, this is Palisa from Welcome. Thank you so much for this conversation. I fell pregnant when I was 15 years old, and it was so shameful going to school with a belly, how people looked at you down the street. But with time, everybody do accept what happens. However, it was really a hard time, and I ended up working very hard. I used that shame to better myself, because I never ever wanted anybody else to treat me that way or look at me that way. Today, I do motivational speaks for teenage moms, just trying to walk them through dealing with guilt, with regret,
Shalom, Bridget. That is wisdom. I believe the norms of the society in the families can be very, very destructive and cause a lot of chaos. As a child, that you are expected to do certain things that are normally being done in the society, see? And you find that as individual, and you are not keen to follow those ways. So your parents may feel that, hey, this child of ours is shaming us because you are not doing 1 and 2. So I can say to the parents, it's very important to look into children and see their individuality and encourage those areas, because we are not all the same. So that can be very, very problematic in such a way that maybe even the child and the parents end up being really enemies. Thank you. Bye.
And we also have 1 or 2 messages here. Kagiso in Randfontein says, taking it to the workplace, why do managers like to make their subordinates feel shameful? What do they want to achieve from this? But, I mean, varying points there from the voice notes, and just your thoughts on all of them. Someone spoke to, psychology liking to emphasize the personal work, I think was the sentiment at the first one, in order to overcome, when really it's more the historic and collective trauma.
Yeah, look, I mean, the important answer there is, if we talk about westernized psychology, is it comes from westernized people. We talk about Freud and Jung. I myself agree completely, is unless we start to understand South African condition properly, we're never going to have a psychology that's relevant and responsive. And that's one of my, that's what I like to do, is to bring, especially like we did today, bring the old ideas of Biko, of Sobukwe, of Rick Turner back into our because when they wrote that stuff, when they wrote those books, it was with the vision of what a new South Africa would look like while still in the apartheid state. And I think also importantly, but hold on, we're going to get a bit sidetracked. And I think that second voice note about
Palisa, and the personal story.
What a beautiful accounts, right? And I can't even imagine. I mean, that kind of shame, and a 15-year-old, a 15-year-old has so few, well, not few, but it's a 15-year-old with a 15-year-old's coping mechanisms. She won't necessarily be able to become financially independent and so forth. It's all a struggle. To where she came to now, I mean, wow. And I think it's important to acknowledge that, is that there's something about the resolve of a human being when the human being doesn't listen to the prejudice, to the shame, and find something very much within. Now, the interesting thing is we call that in psychology resilience. Up until this point, we have no scientific explanation as to how resilience comes through. It's something that human beings are able to do that blows our minds. And we could not work in regards to the type of work that we do unless a human being has that resilience. Hence why we say my patients are my gurus, not the other way around.
Not the other way around. No, I loved that story as well, because I think it spoke to, just taking control of a situation and shifting the narrative for yourself.
Yes.
I know, from the little bit of work in therapy that I've done on just all kinds of issues, sometimes the control comes in you reshaping your own story and the wording that you use around your own story and how you position yourself in your own story. Even if you've been victimized and things have been done, there's still that opportunity for you to arrive for yourself as your own hero.
Absolutely.
You call it resilience. I am yet to term it anything. Let's also jump to WhatsApp, but maybe we've got time to squeeze in one more WhatsApp before we wrap up our conversation.
Hi, Bridget. It's quite funny that you guys should be talking about shame. I feel very. It's a topic that is very close to me at present. I just found out that my wife was cheating on me. We've been married for less than a year, and I am looking for a divorce. But I'm just thinking about the shame that might come with that. It's quite traumatizing. But I feel one needs to make a decision. Thank you for this topic.
Really enjoying this conversation, and it's made me think about Biko in a completely different way. Also, just the universality of the things that he said, it applies to all people, which to me is really a kind of a sign of a great thinker. It's a humanist, or it applies to all human beings. And then also thinking of human-centered approaches and how we have lost as humans our connection to the natural world and where that would fit in. And also listening to the caller who mentioned the structural violence inherent in capitalism, and the link to how nature is exploited under that system and how it has affected our thinking, and links to indigenous knowledge. So a very, very thought-provoking conversation. Thank you so much.
We are so glad. We are so glad to provoke thought, and we hope you carry it off into your personal spaces. But as we wrap it up, Daniel, the caller before the lady, and it sounded like an current unfolding situation. And I think anybody who's gone and had to process a divorce, like just processing the thinking of even getting divorced, you do feel a great sense of guilt and shame. Even if it was in your best interest, there's still that thing. Because, innately I always say, as someone who's been married and divorced, I still say no one gets into marriage to get divorced. No matter what the circumstance, even if it's for your own safety and security, you didn't get into it to get divorced. And I so deeply feel, I can hear it in his voice. That sense of just, it's heavy.
Yeah. And I think one of the saddest things, and there I'm maybe not talking necessarily to him, but to his family, is, our family is, no roots, no tree, no family, no me, and what a difficult space we live in, especially as an Afrocentric people, where the space that we need our support from, we need our love and acceptance from. If you want to know how to have a healthy self-esteem and self-confidence, it comes from the way in which your parents love you. That unconditional acceptance, unconditional love. It's the only relationship legally where that's supposed to take place. And we know that marriages and divorces and so forth are very much about those two people.
Yeah.
And when a relationship like that comes to an end, and in such a difficult way, that person needs his anchor, he needs his support, he needs his family. And we need to rethink a lot. That comes back to Biko around material wants is bad enough, but coupled with spiritual poverty it kills. And that's where spiritual poverty comes in, is where the support structures that's supposed to keep us together, what humanity are we giving to ourselves or to each other by the way in which we treat people? If that's not centralized, if that's not localized, then we're in deep trouble. But I think as well is, if you're in a position where that's not in place, then it's very important that's often where psychology comes in, is it's very important at that point to come and find a professional, somebody who can walk that road with you, especially when the structures that are in place are failing you.
Sure. We wish you I know you're still listening. It sounded like you were still driving. So we wish you the very best on this journey. I mean, divorce can be devastating. Even, I say this all the time as a disclaimer, even if it's for your own safety and your own security and your own peace of mind. As someone who's gone through that, I remember being in conversations with my best friend and saying, it's almost like you're walking around with this big, shiny, highlighted D, where everywhere you go, people are just like disaster, destruction, devastating, like everything negative that you can assign to yourself as a human being, knowing full well you're making the right decision for yourself, but your mind just cannot get over this thing that is only invisible to you based on the perceptions and the prejudice that society levels on, people going through having to get divorced. But they are now flagging me down with like evil eyes, saying we've got to wrap it up. Daniel Hollander, thank you so much for taking the time, and he's a clinical psychologist. By the way, you are on social media for anyone that wants to reach out for you. Give us that handle.
So on Instagram, you can find me on Those Who Can Struggle. So Those Who Can Struggle.
Wonderful stuff. Those Who Can Struggle is the handle on Instagram. If you want to be in contact with Daniel, perhaps even carve out some professional time to be in conversation with him, that is the easiest way you can find him. It's just gone 10 to 3 o'clock. Let's take a quick pause and then we come back and we wrap it up with our final conversation.
Weeknights on S3 are all about winning, and winning big with Wheel of Fortune. For the first time in South Africa, Wheel of Fortune is on S3, Monday to Friday at 7:30 p.m., where Rorisang has South Africans locked into the world of word puzzles. Watch contestants spin the wheel to stand a chance of walking away with 100,000 Rand or a car valued at over 500,000 Rand. You can also be part of the show and win big. To be part of the show, log on to wheeloffortunesa.tv and let the wheel decide your fate. Channel your inner wordsmith with Wheel of Fortune SA on S3. Open up.
Northwest Provincial Legislature's Portfolio Committee on Premier and Finance will conduct public hearings on Northwest Youth Entrepreneurship Service Fund Act Repeal Bill 2023 on 30 August 2024 at Madibogo Community Hall in Madibogo, Twin Park Hall in Potchefstroom, Ipelege Multipurpose Center in Schweizerreneke, and Mokwase Sports Ground Park Zone 1 in Mokwase at 10 o'clock. The bill aims to provide for the repeal of the Northwest Youth Entrepreneurship Service Fund Act 2016, Act number 6 of 2016, and provide for matters connected therewith.
The Buccaneers are highly against anything that will prevent them from getting to the final as they chase their third consecutive title. But the citizens are on a mission to spoil that party. This is the second leg of the MTN 8 semi-final. Defending champs Orlando Pirates FC tackle Cape Town City FC on Saturday, 31 August at 2:30 p.m. live on SABC 1 and SABC radio stations. Also available at your fingertips on SABC Plus and SABCSport.com. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
For the love of the game.
You're listening to Bridget Masinga on SAFM.
Literally, in our last 5 minutes of the show, we're going to be in conversation with Trevor Brewer, Director of Air Treatment Specialist at, is it Solenco? How are you doing, Trevor? You good?
Hi, Bridget. Yeah, thanks very much for having me. Yes, it's Solenco, and we air treatment specialists here in South Africa.
Solenco, fabulous stuff. Oh, so we are fully in the allergy season now. We know that a lot of South Africans, in fact, over 20 million South Africans, battle some kind of pollen-triggered allergies. We love the spring. We just don't like what it brings with us. And we thought maybe let's jump off the conversation by just looking at the factors that contribute to the increased severity of hay fever symptoms during this time of the year as we transition out of winter and into spring, summer.
Well, thanks, Bridget. So, interestingly, the National Wildlife Federation in the US has just released a study that points to spring actually arriving between 10 and 14 days earlier than it did 20 years ago. And obviously, for those of us, who enjoy the summer warmer weathers, this is a great time. But for those who suffer from hay fever, as you alluded to, that can be a horrific time where you start getting into what we call a sneezing fit, or you just feel completely lethargic and overwhelmed, and this really affects your sleep and just your quality of life, which is terrible.
And we see this a lot, Trevor, especially in the nighttime, right? There's quite the more severe impact of nighttime allergies.
Yeah, absolutely. So traditionally, the plants will release pollen into the air during the day, but you're moving around, you're working around. There's a lot more weather conditions, the wind blowing, so that pollen gets dispersed into the sky. And as sort of the nighttime comes around, we actually start seeing that pollen descending. Sort of to ground level, and when it comes to ground level, it comes into your house through these open doors and windows. And traditionally, when you're lying down, you actually have those effects of pollen are amplified, just due to you to be horizontal, and the effects are obviously congestion, headaches, sneezing, and in some cases it actually leads to insomnia where you can't have a good night's sleep.
Absolutely. Now, how do we sort of alleviate these pollen levels, particularly at night? What are some of the strategies or some of the interventions that yourselves focus on?
Actually, there's a number of suggestions that we usually provide to our customers, and making sure your doors and windows are closed at night, just prevent that pollen build-up into your house. That obviously will have a negative impact if that pollen is already in your house. But what you can also do is ensure your linen and curtains and clothing's all really well washed and clean, so anything that's settled on your clothes during the day or into the night has been removed. And then finally, we recommend sort of the use of a high quality air purifier that actually consistently works at cleaning the air and removing those airborne allergens. And what is great about them is they remove more than just pollen from the air. Any airborne allergen that you might have in your home, I'm in Cape Town at the moment and we're experiencing a huge amount of rain. With that rain comes high humidity, and with that high humidity comes mold growth.
Yeah.
And this mold growth also is released into the air through mold spores, and that also affects you if you got hay fever. So a really good air quality, a really good air purifier would remove all these airborne particles from the air. And allow you to actually sleep a whole lot better.
I mean, I'm going to admit in our last minute that, I've come into homes and spaces with air purifiers, but apart from the sort of sense that people use, I've never really understood how an air purifier works. And perhaps this is the opportunity to understand the mechanics around it.
Yeah, sure. I'll try and do it within that minute. So the Selenco air purifiers are a multi-filtration system. So essentially, it's got a fan that draws air through the filters. It has a pre-filter which will catch any pet dander or human hair or larger particles. Our air purifiers then come with a H13 medical grade HEPA filter, which can capture tiny particles from the air. That will include your pollen, your mold spores, your dust, sort of those type of air pollutants. It then also has an activated carbon filter. So, typically if you have a bad smell, within the house, either from VOCs or that activated carbon will absorb those smells through the air. It also absorbs smoke for any households that have smokers in it. And then it finally has a UVC and PCO filtration. So UVC light will activate the PCO, which essentially just kills any airborne bacteria and viruses. That essentially just then pushes that clean air back out into the room. You choose an air purifier based on your room size, so you want your air to flow through your HEPA filter or your multi-filtration system at least 4 times an hour, and that ensures it's constantly wiping your kitchen counter. It will ensure that you've got a very, very clean air quality, and we suggest running them 24/7. 7 days a week, just to ensure that air remains as clean as possible.
Yeah. I mean, listen, I think you did incredibly well in a minute, because I actually now have a very good understanding of how air purifiers work. I thank you for just the snapshot in this conversation. Much appreciate the time with you. That was Trevor Brewer, who's the Director of Air Treatment Specialist there at Selenco. And of course, I think you can find them, wherever you go do your shopping for your air purifiers. It is that time of the year. That is it from us. 3:00 on the dot. Madupi Makhalamel is standing by with your 3:00 bulletin. Inshallah, God willing, we do it again tomorrow.
Thank you very much, Sister Bridge. Safe travels. The top story is how our AXA terminates a multi-million rand contract and the AG's office uses its enforcement powers. A very good afternoon. Airports company AXA has terminated a contract of over 100 million rand for automated border control e-gates awarded to the French technology company IDEMIA. AXA says as a result of an ongoing court case, the contract has been terminated in line with the conditions of the service level agreement, which allows for a 60-day notice period. AXA spokesperson Ernest Mulibana.
The biometric and digital identity technology project remains key to AXA's short to medium-term strategy to ensure a seamless and efficient customer experience, connecting passengers to their next destinations, opportunities, and goals. As such, AXA intends to pursue the project in the near future.
Joburg City Power says it is owed almost 10 billion rand in outstanding payments. The municipal utility and the city of Joburg are continuing their revenue collection drive, targeting businesses and residential areas to recoup the unpaid bills from defaulting customers. City Power's Ngobani Mzizi says the utility has been struggling to make a comeback since relaxing its credit management processes back in 2020.
In this particular quarter, instead of doing 8 drives like we normally do, we're going to do 6